I've got a flat tire outside your driveway. Will you let me in use your telephone? I'm Ernie Lester. I'm a believer in Jesus Christ. And I've got a lot of what-ifs in my life. At the age of 12, I had to beat my daddy off of my mother with a baseball bat. What if I hadn't had to do that? Would I have turned out like I started out? At the age of 16, I moved out of my mom and dad's house. I finished high school on my own. What if I hadn't have done that? Then at the age of 17, I joined up to the United States Marine Corps. After doing the 6 weeks training in Paris Island for my senior trip, I headed off to Vietnam for 3.5 years. My life expectancy was 15 seconds while I was out there. I made it 3.5 years. What if? 2 days before I was going to get discharged, I went in, took my platoon. I was a sergeant. Took 28 men with me. We went in, took over a POW camp. Each one of us had a POW on our shoulder. Guy that was on my shoulder had been captured in 1965. And as I was carrying him through the jungle, he says, "You know, I used to weigh 189 pounds. He only weighed 73 pounds. What if that hadn't happened?" Well, as we were coming through the jungle, we got caught by some snipers. I sent 6 of my men and 6 POWs onto the chopper. And I sat there all night long and fought. When daylight come, out of 22 men, Marines, and 22 prisoners of war, I was the only man that was alive. And I lived with that for a long time. Thought I was a failure. Had dreams about it up till last November. I said, "You failed, boy. You was the only one out of all them that lived." Got shot 23 times, but I lived. Crawled the next day to the chopper pad. Waited for 2 days till he came back. Had no radio, no nothing to talk with. Sent mirrors, shot mirrors toward the mountains, shot mirrors toward the woods. 2 days I laid there waiting on a chopper. What if? What if I hadn't have made it out of there? But I thought I was a failure. One night I had a dream. My wife, Pam, I'd have dreams about that over and over. And she said it was just like going to the movies. I'd be talking in Vietnamese and then I'd be talking in American. Said it was just like going to a movie. So one night I'd prayed, "Lord, take this away from me." And that night I had the same dream. But my Heavenly Father was standing on this little knob and he said, "You fought a good fight. You did all you could do." I ain't had that dream since. After I got out of the service, I got off of an airplane in Houston, Texas. People threw fruit and vegetables at me, spit on me, said I was a baby killer. I walked 3 miles down the road with my backpack on my back, and there wasn't one person pulled over at the side of the road and said, "Hey, bud, you need a ride?" I had some hatred in my heart. Yes, I did. I'd fought for 3.5 years for what I thought was the United States of America. Come back here to get spit on. I walked down to the Harley shop and I paid for me a brand new FLH. Paid cash for it. Rode up to the motel, got me a motel room, and waited on a friend of mine that got out. He was 3 days behind me. It's the only time I ever doubled a guy. I doubled him from the motel down to the Harley shop, and he bought him a new motorcycle. We left the motorcycle shop and $350 between us. We said, well, we're going to head out to California. We went out into California, rode up through New Mexico and into California and up the California coast. And when we got to Fresno, California, we just found us a nice little place. There's a windmill there and a pond. And we took us a bath in the pond, cleaned up. And on the way in, we'd seen a little bar and had a couple of motorcycles sitting around it. So we figured we'd go down there and see if we could get a steak and maybe a little bit of something to eat and something to drink. So we walked in. When we walked in, there was two groups of people there that we kindly focused on to start with real strongly. We sat down, we ordered our steak, and we ordered us a pitcher of beer, and we was drinking beer and eating our steak. And these two groups of people started having more and more conflicts. So Donnie and I had been fighting for 3.5 years, and we liked to fight by then. So there's 4 on one side, or 5 on one side, and there's about 12 over here. And we decided we'd just fall in with the smallest group. And we cleaned house with them. When we got done, we'd found out we'd done whooped the Hell's Angels, and the ones we was fighting with was the Outlaws. They're a 1%. Both of those are 1%ers. What a 1% is, you only follow the club. Nothing else matters in the world. If they tell you to go to your mom and dad's house and burn their house down and shoot them when they come out on the front porch, that's what you'll do. 3% or 3 patch clubs, they're not like that. They believe in family first, their job second, and the club comes third. And those are the clubs that we're talking about that's going with us. There's only maybe 2 of the 1%ers that I know of might go on this trip to Hatfield. But anyway, we got in that fight, and after getting in the fight, they asked us if we'd wanted to ride with them. They was going to ride too. They'd just got out of Vietnam. Some of them had been out for a few years, and some of them had been out for a few days, a few weeks. Come find out, 3 out of the 5 was from Knoxville, Tennessee, and I'd known them off and on all my life, riding dirt bikes and riding motorcycles around Knoxville. But anyway, we rode with them for 3 or 4 months, and we'd stopped at Brunswick, Pennsylvania, I think it was, where they make Zippo lighters and case knives. And one of them come to me, he says, by that time they was calling me Rooster because that's what I was. I'd fight at the drop of the hat. He said, Rooster, how would you like to have a new set of clothes? And I said, well, I've been wearing these Marine fatigues for a pretty good while. They're getting thin, I probably could use some new clothes. He went over to his saddlebags, and he come back with 2 vests, and he handed me one and Donnie one. On the back of it said, Outlaws, Tennessee. So we got our new clothes. Wasn't a new pair of blue jeans that I was hoping for. Wasn't a new pair of shoes. Wasn't a new T-shirt. It was some clothes that for 15 years I fought for. I was a collector for the Outlaws for 15 years. And that time I killed people over $6,000 or a big bag of pot or cocaine. And in that time I got hooked on heroin and cocaine, and I bet you I smoked enough pot you couldn't put it in this room. I didn't believe in God, but God believed in me because He seen me through Vietnam. He held my hand even though I didn't even know Him. He held my hand through 15 years of craziness on earth. He held my hand. Then in 1981, I woke up. I killed one guy in a bar, and he shot me 3 times in the shoulder. I left there with $20,000, a pound of cocaine, 15 pounds of marijuana in my saddlebags. I headed up the road in a Lincoln Continental with a big old long hood, 79 Lincoln, when they really made them good, you know, with a metal grill. It come toward me, and it was going to run over me. And I was in really good shape back then, so about the time it hit my motorcycle, I jumped up and landed on the hood. And as I was sliding across the hood, I pulled 2 .45s out and shot everybody that was in the car. Killed 5 men that night, and 6 counting the man at the bar. Broke me up pretty good, knocked my eyes out of my head, drove my teeth out of my mouth, broke my left femur, busted my kneecaps. 2 of the guys that was with me grabbed me up and just threw me across the seat of a Harley and took me to the clubhouse. All right, at night they had a doctor come into the clubhouse and gave me a fifth of Jack Daniels and some Valiums, and we had an operation right there on the table. They put my eyes back in my head. They pulled my teeth back through my lip and then stood my teeth up. Took and put a piece of rod in my femur and put me some pins in my knees. While I was there recovering, I got a note from my dad through the grapevine that the law had came to the house looking for me. I needed to turn myself in because we left my motorcycle with my license plate laying there in the road with 5 dead men. So I went and I turned myself in. One of the guys lived long enough to say they was trying to run over me with that Lincoln Continental, so that dropped it from being murder, 1st degree, to manslaughter. They give me 15 years in prison. I spent about a year in there in jail before they took me to the prison. Off and on, I'd be moved from different places. Finally, they decided they was going to take me to prison. I went into the place where you go before you go out in the general population. 2 days before I went into general population, my attorney came to me. He says, "How would you like to go home?" I said, "Man, I can't go home." I said, "I've got 15 years to do." He said, "How would you like to go home?" I said, "I really don't want to go home, but I sure would take some help." He said, "That's the right answer." He said, "You have 2 Purple Hearts and you got 2 gold stars." Said, "You fought for your country." Said, "The judge said if you wanted help to get off of the drugs and wanted help to get out of that lifestyle, he'd help you." So I spent 6 months in a drug rehab at the Peninsula in Knoxville, Tennessee. Spent 28 days on dry. It's an outpatient. Then I spent 6 years with a bracelet around my arm that told them exactly where I was the whole time, every minute. But what that did was I couldn't go to the OL clubhouse no more because there was felons there. I couldn't be around those felons. If I'd have got caught there, they'd have went to jail along with me going to jail. And so I just stayed away from them for the 6 years. That gave me 6 years to get closer to my 2 boys. My first wife, I'd been home for just a little while from my getting to be a OL, and I had rambling fever, and we went to Daytona Beach, Daytona for Bike Week, and she got killed down there, and she left me with she got killed in a motorcycle accident, decapitated, And she left me with about a 5-year-old boy to raise. Here I was, a drug addict. I got stupid again, got married. I had another boy 2 years later, in 77. His mama just decided that she didn't want to be a mama anymore, so she left. Here I had 2 boys to raise, and I was a drug addict, running with the devil all the time. But God knew where I was at, and he kept his hand on me and them boys. So one night about 1992, I'd been deer hunting out in Rose Hill, Virginia all day. All day long, my heart was just pounding in my chest. And I felt like I was going to explode. Deer came by me, and I couldn't raise my gun to shoot. Now, I've been out of the outlaws. I'd been drug-free, but I still didn't have no Jesus in me. And there was this little Pentecostal pastor that worked for me. He quit a job to go to work for me, and he fasted for 28 days. And then all of a sudden, this heart in my heart just started hurting. I was behind his house deer hunting. I crawled to the truck. My cousin said, all you need's a joint, a beer. I said, babe, I don't think that'll help me at all. We drove from Rose Hill, Virginia to Knoxville, Tennessee, and he helped me up into the house, and then he left me there hurting like whiz. Didn't know what was going on. After I was there by myself, there's a voice come to me and says, boy, you either get down on your knees or I'm taking you out of here. So I rolled over right then in my recliner and put my knees in the floor, and I put my head in the seat, and I prayed that Jesus Christ would take me in and come into my heart. You know, you see a picture of Jesus knocking on the door. There ain't no doorknob on the outside of that door. You got to open it and let him in. So that's what I did that day. Well, he gave me something to do that I never thought I'd get to do or even be thought of, because when I tried it before, my daddy said it sounded like I was killing small farm animals, so I never did try to sing. And if a preacher came to my house, knocked on the door, I'd say, buddy, you need to go off down there and paddle that somewhere it needs it, because I don't want no part of that. Just so happened, the day after I got saved, the preacher came to my house. And when I went to the door, he said, yeah, I know, go on down the road. I said, no, brother. I said, I've got something, and I don't really know what to do with it. I said, the Lord's done something to my heart and changed me. So the preacher came in, and we prayed, and I told him about my journey with Jesus. And I told him, he said, for me to sing. And I said, I can't sing. Daddy told me I couldn't. So years and years before, when I was out on the road, I'd written a letter to my mom, and I'd made a couple of copies of it. Carried one in my billfold in case I got killed, that she'd think that I might have got saved and went to heaven. One day I was coming in off of a big ride, and I seen this sign that says Squire Parsons here today. I said, I don't know what a Squire Parsons is, but I'm going in there to see. I rode my motorcycle right up to the bottom of the stage, and I propped up, and I listened to him. When he walked off the stage, I said, I don't know why I'm here. And I wasn't saved at this time either. It was a year or so, probably 10 years before I actually got saved. I said, I don't know why I'm here, but God told me to give you this piece of paper. And it was a letter to my mom. And if you ever see Squire Parsons, you just ask him. He'll say an old hippie rode up on a Harley and gave me this one day. Told me I needed to sing it in a song. So I'll do number 4 now on that. Called up my mom and told her, I said, would you go to church with me? She said, you don't go to church. I said, well, will you go to church with me? She said, you don't go to church. I said, well, I'm going to go to church. Will you go? She said, yeah, where and when? I said, Wednesday night at Graveston Baptist Church. She said, me and your grandma will be there. When I got there, I walked up to her and I handed her this letter that I'd written her 15 years before. And I walked to the front of the church and I said, you know, you all are going to get to see me the first time ever doing this. And I did it a cappella. Turn it up just a little. Hello, Mama. I just called to tell you all those tears you shed for me. No, they were not in vain, 'cause something happened tonight while traveling down that old country road. I thought you should be the first to know that I'm not the same. Just turn it off, I'll do it a cappella. All those dreary days are over now. The sleepless nights have passed. All those prayers that you have prayed so long, they're answered now at last, for I'm not the man I used to be. And Mama, you can sleep tonight, for I found Jesus. Now everything's all right. Well, I remember every night before I'd go to sleep, I'd hear her ask the Lord my soul to keep, that I might find my way. And I'm so thankful through those lonely and wasted years, her prayers kept ringing in my ears every night and day. Yes, I do.